Hey everyone, so welcome to the Banh Chronicles podcast. My name is Randy Kim, and so I would like to introduce you a special guest, and many thanks to his son, who's a dear friend of mine, Huy Nguyen. Um, we had a dinner almost a year ago, and when author G. Win Van Quay Mai came to Chicago, I was hosting the event, and we had dinner, and you joined us. You and your family joined us, and we were talking about the Fall of Saigon. We were talking about the Vietnam War experiences, and you brought up a very important story about your own childhood, but also what you did uh, in your adult years working with the US and the Vietnamese government to help um, reclaim the bodies of MIAs and POWs back to America to loved ones. And I felt like this is a story that really needs to be told because there's a lot of different contexts as to what happened, but also, since it's over now 50 years since the end of the American involvement in the Vietnam War, I think it's important to make sure that these stories are told. So I want to say thank you so much, Ju Hung, for being on my show. And so far, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm trying to get ready for this. This is my first time being interviewed, so a little nervous, but I'll make it.
Yeah, you do great. And I wonder, so how long have you lived in America? Like, when did you arrive, or what age did you arrive to America?
I came to the United States in 1973, December
Mm,
23rd, couple of days before Christmas,
mm,
and back then I was about 14 years old. My mom's, she used to work for the South Vietnamese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, like our State Department. And I was with her in Thailand. She was in at the Vietnamese embassy in Thailand. And she said, "Hey, go go to the U.S. And stay with our friend, with our family friend." So she sent me over, and that's when I traveled to the U.S. in 1973. Yeah.
mm. And that was like 2 years before the fall of Saigon. And
Right.
what do you remember about the Vietnam War during that period of time? Or what was your own experience growing up and being able to try to make sense of what was going on as a young teenager?
I was a little bit about my family. My dad, he was in the Vietnam Army. He was a captain, and my mom, like I said, she used to work for the foreign ministry in South Vietnam. And my dad died when I was young, during the war, when I was 7. So I remember a lot of shooting that I can see from our rooftop, regularly. And that's even in Saigon itself. You see tracer bullets and stuff like that from the balcony. But my dad died, and then my mom, she took me on her with her when she was working for in the embassies in the Philippines. She did a tour there a couple years, and in Italy, and then in Thailand. That was her last assignment, and that's when she sent me to the U.S. As a as a small studying in junior high school, and stay in the U.S. And I was traveling alone. I remember, I guess I didn't know much, and of course, I didn't know much English back then,
Hmm.
and I was younger. And but I guess if you don't know a lot, you're not too scared because you. So I got on the plane with my backpack. I remember my backpack, and my guitar and my back, and I mean, I travel alone over, and I remember I arrived in Virginia. That's where I end up living in Lynchburg, Virginia,
Mhm.
in '73, and I stayed there temporarily for a few months, and then I move up to Arlington, Virginia, and stay and study in Arlington, Virginia,
Mhm.
until I graduate high school.
Mm. When and I was also wondering, did you also grow up with siblings or were you an only child?
No, I have two sisters, two older sister.
Mm.
They didn't come to the U.S. until after the war,
Mhm.
much later.
Mhm.
One is deceased, is passed
Mhm.
on. My oldest one,
Mhm.
and my second sister, she's in California now. So
Mhm.
there's just three of us. I think because no, I think there was a draft in Vietnam for male,
Mhm.
who are when they get the age to
Mhm.
join the military, so they get drafted in. So I think my mom was seeing that coming, so she said she took the action she did. That's what I
Mhm.
think. Of course, I didn't talk with her about all that detail stuff.
Yeah. And did you feel like when you were going through with the war during that period as a young kid, um, how I think when you experience like the gunshots, hearing the noise of helicopters and what have you, um, how did you and your family try to stay safe under those circumstances, especially when there's so much confusion? This was before the internet and before cell phones came into existence. What was that like?
Well, I think in Vietnam is the during the war is very confusing for local Vietnamese because you have the South Vietnamese government, that they you can see them operate during the day, but at nighttime, especially in the province where my grandparents are at, at nighttime, the Viet Cong and so on, they come out and they will do the operation there. They either collect taxes or trying to pass on propaganda and try to recruit people and so on. So it's very the two government are the Viet Cong and the South Vietnam Army were operating day and night, and of course, my mom's side, she has brothers and sister who work for the South Vietnam
Mm,
government, and the Viet Cong would come and pressure my grandfather to tell my uncles and auntie to turn to the other side and basically recruiting them or tell them to go. So you have to balance, how you work during the day or how to live during the day and how to live during the night when, when the other side come out. So it was a very confusing situation
mhm.
during the war. And of
Yeah.
course, my grandfather got in the end, um, they didn't. I guess they didn't think he was doing enough, so they kidnapped him
Mm,
and took him away. We just don't know where he
mm,
ended up or what happened to him,
mm,
because he yeah, they show up at nighttime and took him away. That's
mm,
my grandfather did, and then
mm,
um, because in our family, in my uncles were in the Vietnamese army, and my mom you worked for the foreign ministry and stuff like that. So it was
mm,
a challenge, I think, for them, and to live and to be secure, and so on.
mm. I wonder about, and I think I'll probably get more into this later on, but I know when you were doing your work with the US government and trying to work with the Vietnamese government, were you also trying to find what happened to your grandfather? Did it feel like a mission to you? Because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, wow, I could see the connection being
Yeah.
made here.
Well, yeah, I'll expand that in a little bit, but
Mm,
basically, I work as a U.S. government employee. I was in the military. I worked for the DoD, and we had a mission back then that we have a specific time that we operate on a mission, normally like 30 days. We're only in country to do specific cases, investigate or excavate cases. So there's really um, only time to do American looking for an account for U.S. service member, and that was our mission. Other things were we just don't have the resource and the time, and we're not tasked to do
mm,
the local Vietnamese citizen. But that doesn't mean that when we come across information that we disregard, we actually bring any information we know about missing Vietnamese citizen to the Vietnamese government and ask them to follow up for themselves.
mhm,
When we interview witnesses, when we come across any material evidence, and or we hear anything or during our research, we will pass that information on. But we cannot, we were just there to investigate an account for Americans. So that's what I did.
mm, mm. And how did the American government, how did you get involved with working with the American government in this specific work? And how did it all began when they were starting to try to build, um, um, build a commission, or I don't know if this is the right word, but to start working with cooperating with the current Vietnamese government after the war, which obviously the relations between the US and Vietnam was very frosty. So I'm very curious about that particular timeline, like when you first entered in and how they got you into this work.
Okay. I graduated high school in 1978. So from 73 when I arrived. I went through junior high and high school, then graduated in 78, and then I joined the U.S. Air Force in 78, September. Um, and I came in as a medical lab field. That's what I was trained to do, medical for in the Air Force. And um, then in 1993,
Mm,
1993, that's when I got a call and they said, hey, they gearing up for missions to Vietnam. At that time, the Joint Task Force Full Accounting, which is tasked for the U.S. government to go search for POW MIA from the Vietnam War. That's ramping up. So JTFFA, Joint Task Force for Accounting, formed up in 92. I think in 93, they said, hey, we need some linguists. We need somebody that can speak, translate, and go on missions to Vietnam. So they called me up and they said they need me to go. So and this is before the normalized relationship between the U.S. and Vietnam government. In 1993, there was this POWMIA mission is the bridge to open up the relationship between Vietnam and the U.S. government. because we didn't have normalized relationship yet
mm,
until 1996. In 1996, then the U.S. And Vietnam normalized, and all the uh, foreign companies and develop and travel to Vietnam and open businesses and that. But during the early years, I think they weren't sure uh, what I was doing there. In 1993, when I first traveled to Vietnam
mm,
on the mission, normally we have it's called we have joint field activity. That's called what JFA, joint field activities, and normally that's like a 30 days mission that we were sent in as teams. Some are investigation team, some are on a recovery team, and some do research. So we operate in a small team in Vietnam. Especially investigation team. There's about 5 people or so. Recovery team has a little bit more because they have to excavate, they have to dig, the site,
mm,
and that's how we operate. We travel. We were stationed in Hawaii, and we travel from Hawaii on military airplane to Thailand and Vietnam as a group. And then once we get to Vietnam, we split up in small teams.
mm.
Some, like I did, was investigation, so we just have like 5 people on a small team. Um, is it okay if I talk like that?
Yes,
No?
yes,
Okay.
yes, please do.
There's the team are small because we just trying to find witnesses. We're trying to find crash
Mm,
site. We're trying to find burial site. We're trying to find go back to the incident location, the battlefield, and search, because these are very old cases,
mm,
sometime you just don't know if there's any witnesses left so we have to
mm,
search for them.
mm,
So for example, in an investigation team, we have like a team leader, a medic to take care of us, during the operation, and an EOD, explosive ordnance technician,
mm,
just in case that we come across an explosive ordnance, bombs or whatever.
mm,
And that still exists. Those dangers are still in the jungle stuff at that time. And of course, the natural danger out there is the snake and the leeches, and
mm,
all the terrains are also difficult because most of the battlefield are in the deep woods, in the deep jungle, or
mm,
the airplane crash normally in the mountain top. So we have to go and hike and climb the mountain
wow.
just to get there before we can work. And not talking about beside all the other dangers that we face. So the team itself for investigation team is very small. Of course, there's a
Mm,
linguist and there's an anthropologist to make sure that if we do get a crash site that we it is and remains that they can identify, that looks like Western remain or not just on preliminary,
mm,
or Asian remain. So we can just, or not cow or animal remain, so on.
mhm,
And we also have on the team they call life support technician who knows about airplane crash, airplane wreckage. So
mm,
he or she can pick up from the ground a piece of wreckage, and they can say, "Hey, this is this type of airplane or this type of, are we on the right place or not?" Because there are a lot of airplane crash in Vietnam during the war. So we need to know that we're at the right location, or
mm,
and the story from the witnesses also have to tell us that we're where, the right time frame, the right airplane crash site. If they see any
Mhm.
um, crew member that die, or what happened to the crew member when they went to the crash site or so on, were the crew member alive or not, what they did with the crew member. So there are a lot of things going on once we get to
Mhm.
location.
Mhm.
So, but that's just on the investigation side. I did pretty much all the operation on the recovery side. The excavation side is a bigger team that they just once the investigation team found us the good site, then we send in the recovery team, and the recovery team will occupy that site for a duration of 30 days or whatever time that they need, and they will excavate. Um, Sometimes it's deep in the jungle, so they have to be self-sufficient. They have to take all their logistic with them, and they dig an airplane crash site, which takes a lot of work, and just to find the remains. Sometimes it's just the small pieces, or some a tooth or more. It's because there's so many years have gone by.
Mhm.
And that's how difficult it is for the site. There's the after the war, the jungle reclaimed the land.
Mhm.
What they fought at a battlefield back then is now, covered with trees and wild animals and so on. So it's a difficult terrain, especially on the mountain too. And we were operating all over the country, a lot of time in North Vietnam and Central Vietnam, because that's where a lot of battle in the central, and a lot of bombing in North Vietnam. So that's where we operate most of the time.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, on we work 30 days or so, sometimes 45 days, and then we return back to Hawaii. Um, that's where we station in a military base, and we operate from there. And we did about 4 to 6 missions a year, like that. So I travel frequently on those missions. And later on, even do research in Vietnam. Um, and I work with the local we have to work with the local
Mhm.
officials
Mhm.
in Vietnam. It's just to, because
I,
we're
mhm.
foreign, we're just like representative of the US government, so
Mhm.
we have to work with the local government in
Yeah.
all level.
Yeah. How did the local officials and the local townspeople treat you and your team? Were they viewing you with suspicion, or what was their willingness to open up about, you know, about some of these about some of their own witness accounts or some of their own knowledge? How were they able to confide in you about these very critical information?
Well, during the early years when I first started in 1993, before the normalized relationship between the US and Vietnam government, um, they weren't sure exactly what I'm doing there. They were not fully trusting me because they weren't sure if I'm a spy, or I'm really looking for POW MIA,
Hmm.
or what am I doing there. So it was a little harder because not they don't fully trust me. So they will have a handler or somebody who watch out for not just me, I think just for the US team in itself. And we were working, and we were and like that for the first few years. Then after 1993, in 1996, well, after the normalized relationship, the relation, the cooperation is much better. We have a few years working together, so it's easier to work and communicate. I think what what they didn't at the beginning is harder, but we have more cases, a lot of cases. Sometimes we did like 50 cases in a mission, which is so much to do. And the working with the Vietnamese government is you have to work with all level, like I mentioned before. There's the central government
Mhm.
official, and then there's the province officials, and then there's the district official, and then there's the village officials, and then if you manage to work with all those people, then you get to see the witness and talk to the witness. The who claim they have some information or not. And you have to understand the language, the culture, the custom. Otherwise, you can't really work. Every country you go, there's certain things, in that country that you have to understand. You have to understand the people, so they will be willing and to work with you. You have to talk, you have to be respectful, you have to do all those things. And of course, we want to accomplish our mission. So we want them to cooperate with us. So as a linguist, it's important for us to work together, and we try to negotiate between Vietnam government, and then the U.S. government too, because there's a lot of information, there's a lot there's resource involved, there's money involved, there's planning involved, moving by helicopter, moving by, other transportation. So there's a lot of things going on throughout the day just to get through the day, and then try to plan for the next day and the next day, for the end of whole joint field activity.
Mhm.
And then, as the person who knows about the language, we have to be mindful and make sure that everybody is happy and
Mhm.
understand what we need to do and do it correctly.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we can't accomplish all the number of cases we're assigned for that mission.
Mhm.
So that,
Yeah. A question that stood out for me is that you come back to Vietnam as an adult for the first time, and I wonder, were you also curious about looking for family members? Was your mom telling you, like, okay, is there a possible way to find this relative or places that you remembered? Was that also going through your own mind too, or was that even possible at that time, or was it so specifically focused that you really couldn't allow yourself to process, the
yeah,
homeland that you escaped from?
I thought about that, but it doesn't work out in our situation because, again, we're limited to the number of days in country on each joint field activity, like 30 days or so, and we're assigned so many cases to do during that time frame. And most of those cases are not from where my family came from, in the deep south. Most are cases that I work on are in central Vietnam or North Vietnam. So there's just really no chance to work on family information or anything like that. So we there to find answers, to find information for the U.S. families, the missing family members. Family are still waiting for answers. They want to know what happened to their loved ones.
Hmm.
They want to know what happened to their son, their brother, their uncle. They just one day they just disappear. And they
Hmm.
might be in the battlefield, or they might be on an airplane crash, and they just don't know what happened. They want to know what happened to their loved one, and they want to bring their loved one home,
Mm,
like everybody do. Everybody does, and so that they can bury their loved ones, at home, in
mhm,
their I mean in their family cemetery, so on. So
mhm,
it's just we're just uh,
mhm,
only have time to investigate U.S. cases, and account for Americans during that time frame that I was doing, either investigation team or recovery team, um, and
mhm.
research also.
And how many USPOWs, MIAs were you looking for? What was the caseload when you first started it? What was the total number? Do you recall?
Well, we have, I think the U.S. government, and of course I'm retired now for a
Hmm.
few years,
Hmm.
but I think there's around a little more than 1,500 cases of an account for Americans from the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
A lot of them are in Vietnam. We do have some are in Laos
Hmm.
and some in Cambodia. Very few in Cambodia,
Hmm.
a few hundreds in Laos, and majority in Vietnam.
Hmm.
But we do have, because during the war, we bombed the Ho Chi Minh Trail between Vietnam and Laos. So there's airplane crash there. There's cases missing Americans in Laos and also in Cambodia. So we work in all three countries,
Hmm.
just different teams searching, and basically the concept and team is similar. It's just the location in Vietnam, Laos, or Cambodia.
Hmm.
So, but if um uh if we have again, of course, there's the restrictions are different in different countries.
Hmm.
The languages barrier, the
Hmm.
witnesses. A lot of witnesses are either old now or dead, so many years gone by.
Hmm.
And of course, their memory are not perfect, so you have to take what they tell you, the witness statement, and then you have to cross-check with our U.S. Data, the information that we have that, on one day we send in a helicopter or a jet or whatever. It has to match, before we can correlate that information. Yeah.
And also, like at the beginning when you were, I mean, I don't remember the exact number of POWs and MIAs that were missing back in say 1993. I mean, was it like several hundred thousand? What number do you recall?
Oh, you
Like all together? Yeah,
altogether,
yeah.
I think when we have in 1973, if I try to remember back in those numbers because
Hmm.
my memory are not very good,
Yeah.
but we have about, I think, 26 missing, 2,600
Hmm. Hmm.
American missing, and then from then on, we identify and recover
Hmm.
approximately 1,000. That probably leave around 1,500 or so now, a little bit more or so, around 1,500 left. About when I left, it's about a little over 1,200 in Vietnam, and a few hundred in Laos, and some in Cambodia. But most of them are Vietnam losses, um, because that's where the battlefields were. That's where the airplane crashes were, and of course we do have some underwater
Hmm.
cases too,
Hmm.
off the coast of Vietnam. So we have teams that goes for all those cases, underwater cases too. We have divers and
Hmm.
the U.S. government is kind of unique that we actually, have resources, have mission to search for missing American. And that's just talking about the Vietnam War. We
Mhm.
later on when I was working as the JTFFA, Joint Task Force for Accounting, it evolved after the time that I was there. I mean, the time I was there, it changed from Joint Task Force for Accounting into Joint POW Accounting Command, and then it later on become DPAA, Defense yeah, POW Accounting Agency. But they actually have a section that does the Vietnam War,
Mhm.
the Korean War,
Mhm.
World War II. So we are just different team, a different section looking for missing, unaccounted for service member from those different wars. So it's very a unique uh, operation
Mhm.
that the U.S. government has for searching for missing Americans.
Yeah. I think one of the things I remembered in our dinner conversation a year ago was that working with the local townspeople was also very tricky because you would find that there were those that were starting to do grave robbing, or that they were falsifying like uh, the remains of folks that you were looking for. And so what was that experience like in trying to navigate, the falsehoods you experiences, and, hearing more about the grave robbing and the many different narratives that you were given?
Um, Vietnam went through different stages after the war, and like I mentioned before, they do have a lot of losses, the Vietnamese loss in during the war. So some places that we travel to, the family, like all families, some of them still remember that, hey, their family, somebody in their family, perished from the war or from American bombing or so on. So it sometimes it's difficult to walk in a village, and local has family that in that situation. So we always rely on the Vietnamese government officials to act as a barrier and help us understand and let us know is this place is okay or so on. In regarding to the misinformation about or the remains and stuff, back in 19 around in the 1980s, this was that's I was told, it was a very difficult time in Vietnam in economic sense.
Hmm.
And then so they would they would they heard or they passed rumors that if you have remains from Americans remain or U.S. Servicemen, then it's either you either get a visa to the United States or you get
Hmm.
paid money and you get different treatments from the U.S. So there's a period of time when that information got passed on and word of mouth in local. So they would go out and they find remains, sometime that they're animal bones, either cow or pig or whatever, um, or just large bone, and they figure they can pass it to somebody and who's willing to hear and pay for those things, or they will find or they will go and dig the grave and found and get the remains. And of course, later on, the Vietnamese government put out make it illegal for the locals to do those things for robbing the cemetery and so on. But it was difficult and trying to they tried to some of them tried to pass the remains on and thinking that, nobody would know. It's just that the US government as a team, we travel with an anthropologist, and anthropologists
Mm,
can basically determine whether it's an animal bone or whether it's a human bone. They know those things, and it's just on the preliminary, they can say, hey, this is not right.
mm,
Well, also another thing that also shows up during our investigation is, at a period of time during the Vietnam War, there's about 50,000 U.S. troops, crossed through Vietnam, during their deployment there. And a lot of them, came back, so they either, and they have they call dog tag, identification tag, so they either threw away or give it to a girlfriend or somebody that they know or something like that,
mm,
and didn't bring that home, or they lost it, or something happened to that. Well, if the local pick up the identification tag,
mm,
and they figure if they can match it up with a set of bone, and they can say, hey, this is the American, but they don't realize that we have a list of unaccounted for by name, unaccounted for U.S. service member by name. So we know who's missing and who's not, so if the person is not missing, then we're, that ID tag is just somebody tossed it or somebody didn't bring it home. And on occasion that it's actually a real dog tag, then we say, hey, let's follow up. Let's find about what happened. Where did this witness find this dog tag, ID tag? And let's pursue that some more. And trying to find either where the burial site is or where they found the ID tag, and hopefully to lead us to the remains, and to recover. So yes, there's a time that people were doing that, and but much later on, the Vietnamese government put out a law say you can't, or they can't just go out and rob or dig up other
mm,
families' graves and get their remains.
mm,
But they if they sell, they sell those remains, and to a few people, they'll tell to a lot of people, but if they manage to sell to one or two, they make some money. But the
mm,
local doesn't have all the scientific information.
mm,
They don't have a list of unaccounted for Americans. They don't have all the data, so they don't know. They just look at, if it's set of bone, if I see a
mm,
dog tag, ID tag, then it must be American. So,
mm,
yeah, it's a different thinking in the local than how we
mm,
pursue things in a scientific way.
mm.
You know.
Yeah, and also like as time went on, as you got further into your work, I also the advancement of technology also grew. I mean, DNA testing and different ways to, search. Um, what do you think was the biggest breakthrough in terms of technology and that made it easier to find additional POWs and MIAs?
I the laboratory at DPA is one of the most modern lab that I know of. The anthropologists that work there, they can do all kind of testing from the bone, the tooth, and that's just part of it. I think they also get, we also look at where the remains were found, what other evidence we have, that would match up, whether it's from the same airplane, for aircraft type, whether it's, the uniform, did you find the right uniform? Where is the crew uniform or just this, the ground troop uniform? So there's a lot of information that they go through to make sure that we identify the right person. But yeah, you're right. Technology has improved, and it helps us to make determination. And of course, when they identify somebody, if the that they think is the right one, they have to write up and present that information and the remain to the family and make sure that, all those things are accurate, make sure that the family understand why they determine those remain belong to their family. And it's a challenge, but it's also rewarding. The
Mm.
thing about it is that it's sometimes you don't have, because so many years have gone by, you don't have a lot of remains,
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have a tooth or some teeth or have because the grounds are very acidic, in the jungle, and after years it deteriorate, and you have animals scrounge in the jungle for food and things like that. And we also have, after the war, there's economic development. People
Mm.
build road, houses, bridges, and so sometimes the site get disturbed. And they didn't know. Until they start construction, they say, "Hey, look, they found a crash site or something like that." So we get information like that too. So we always tell the local or the Vietnamese governments, to be aware that, we have a case in a nearby. If they know of anybody finds something, they have to let us know so we can go there and investigate to confirm, or whether it is or not the case that we're actively looking for. So
Mm.
there's a lot of challenge because Vietnam changed a lot after the war.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been there, you'll know that high rises, highway get built. They have new modern tunnel that they build now. The transportation changed, a lot of road and bridges. So Vietnam is not the same as during the wartime, So it's always a challenge. But we're hoping that there's somebody um, to tell us where to find, if they come across some good information, we're always trying to develop that out.
Mm. And did you have contact, or were you allowed to have contact with the families of missing soldiers?
Yeah, we do have like uh every year we have some family, they call family updates that we actually is different meeting around the country, around the US in different cities.
Mm.
So because we try to make it so that the family in certain area can travel easier too. And the family will come, and there will be an analyst for that case, for their case, and they will brief the family on what's going on with their case, whether there's an investigation going on, whether there's a recovery excavation going on, or still some research, any information, any witnesses. So basically, keep the family update with information, and we see that, or I in my time when I met with the family after investigation, is that they still wanting to know more.
Mhm.
It's just that the time, a lot of time has passed. A lot of the parents are not with us anymore. They move, they pass on. But, now it's up to the relatives, the brother, sister, your niece and nephew. And so
Mhm.
they pass that down to the younger generation. And they still come, those people still come to the family update to find out about their loved ones.
Mhm.
So we know that people are not giving up on that, because they will notify the families that, hey, we're going to be in
mm,
certain city throughout the country, different time during the year. And if they want to know or are available, they come in and meet the analysts and talk about their case, you know. And a lot of family I met, very, very nice people. It's just that they want closure. They
mm,
want to know what happened, and hopefully, the work will become successful, that bringing the remains of their loved ones home, to bury in the cemetery or the family cemetery or so on. It's rewarding when you see the other side of it
mm,
with the family, because a lot of time, when we operate in the field, away from, in the remote jungle and mountains out like that, we were busy doing investigation and recovery, but behind each case number, there's actual family waiting for answer. So, I just had the privilege of doing all that, work in the field and also meet up with the family and brief the family. So it's rewarding to do that,
mm,
Um, and the people are getting older.
mm,
And it's just but they pass on to their new generation and
mm,
say, hey, keep looking for, grandpa, uncle, whatever,
mm,
that we're still missing from the war. I mean, imagine we're still looking for missing, servicemen from the World War II,
mm,
and some in the, some other ones, and in Europe, yeah, World War II,
mm,
we work on both sides, in Europe and in Asia too. We have,
mm,
we were fighting, two different area
mhm, mhm,
back then. So, but we do have team that operate like that,
mhm.
and Korea, also
Yeah.
Korea too. And see that those are even older than the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so what does it look like for this kind of work moving forward then? Because especially as more time comes on, we're over 50 years, the adult survivors are starting to pass on. Like, do you see this work concluding in the next 10, 15 years? Like to the point where like there may no longer be any interest in doing the search? Or
Yeah.
what's your feeling on that?
I I just well, I cannot say what the US, because I'm retired now, so
Mm,
I cannot say what the US government gonna do in the next year or so, or what they're gonna but I think there's a family interest in this, specifically this mission. Um, that's why they were still team looking for the missing, the unaccounted for from the Korean War and World War II.
mhm,
So there's still that. But as time goes by, the witnesses are not available anymore. They
mhm,
die, or, they are very few that are still around. So Vietnam War, are getting to be like Korean, talking about witnesses now. Like
mm,
witnesses are less and less, in Korean War and World War II and so on, because the World War II are members are like in their hundreds or so years
yeah,
old,
yeah,
so it's more of a, you have to find the right side, and you have to find the matching information, like if somebody found something that, like an identification tag that was matching, or the right airplane type, crash site, or certain on a burial. Also, too, oh, I forgot to mention that
mhm,
during my work there, I also bring witnesses,
mhm,
both the U.S. veterans and the Vietnamese veteran, the North
mm,
Vietnamese soldiers or so on, that
mhm,
they fought against each other during the
mhm,
war, but
mhm,
we're not at war anymore. So the regarding the U.S. veterans, if they say, "Hey, I remember my buddy." die at certain location, and I bury him, or I know what happened to that in that incident. We'll talk with that U.S. veteran, and we will also, if it's the information correlates, we'll also bring that U.S. veterans to uh,
Mm,
to Vietnam and help us find the incident location, and hopefully would the remains lead up to the remains.
mm,
On the Vietnamese veteran, like the North Vietnamese soldiers, they fought. They travel. A lot of them travel from north through south through the Ho Chi Minh Trail and so on. They fought the U.S. That time frame. But the Ho Chi Minh Trail traveled through Laos at the border of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia.
mm,
So we do during our research, we do order of battle. We search for the unit, both the North Vietnamese unit that fought in certain area, and we try to ask for veterans, Vietnamese veterans
mm,
who were operate at the border in Laos and who may know something about an incident, like a shoot down or something like that, that are relating to an account for Americans. And we will bring, I remember I brought some Vietnamese veterans to Laos at the border, and we found, the incident location. We found a crash site. The witness tell a story about how he saw the U.S. serviceman perish, and point out the location. So all that information really helps. So it's not just a straightforward going to one location, but we also use witnesses, veterans that would, I mean, to help us search for U.S. soldiers missing from the war.
mm. And as far as your grandfather, do you also feel like it's been a mission to search for his whereabouts, or what other potential missing relatives or people that your family was connected to?
Well, I think the for the U.S. government, I wasn't doing that during my time there.
Hmm.
I'm sure their their interest in searching for their loved ones in both country, in the U.S. And in Vietnam too. Vietnam has an office called a VNO SMP, is Vietnam Office Searching for Missing Person,
Mm,
that also searching for their missing soldiers, their missing family members, and
mm,
so on. So any information that we have, or they have, that goes through that office,
mm,
and that's the one that we work with in Vietnam. So they send representative from that office. Mostly are from the Vietnamese ministries, like the Ministry of Defense and Foreign Affairs and Interior. Representative in that make up that group, the VNO SMP, and that's who we work with. We travel around. They have to they provide security resources and transportation for our team and coordinate with local official to make sure that we're safe to do that. But yeah, Vietnam has their own office searching for missing Vietnamese citizen. Um, for us, for me specifically, I haven't searched for my grandfather,
mhm,
but he was gone when I was really young, so I just don't have that information. And I
mhm,
wasn't doing that when I was working this mission.
mhm. And what does it feel like to you nowadays when you go back to Vietnam? Obviously, not on a mission related work, but for you, having to escape, as a young kid. to coming back and being able to experience Vietnam as it is now?
Vietnam, my family, I traveled my family back as recent as like 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And my wife and kids, two kids. Um, and I think we don't talk about the war much. And I think the new generation of Vietnamese, they don't talk about the war anymore. They don't really know about the war much anymore. They don't discuss that. Um, they were the new generation in Vietnam are very open to foreigners. They curious. They want to practice English. They want to learn about I think we have we just visiting as tourists, and we don't discuss the war because what I was doing during my time in the military is far away from where I travel now as a tourist. It's when I was working, I was like deep in the jungle,
Hmm.
or high up in the mountain with leeches and snake and so on. And those places are not open to tourists. Are they? Yeah, you can't even if you want to go there, the local official won't let you go there because those are very remote. Um, so a lot of tourists, tourists spend time in the main city, like in Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, and in Da Nang at the beach or so on in Hanoi, the capital. But I don't think they dwell on the POW as we in the military, are searching for them. We had a mission, or they still do. Some of my friends still working the mission. So I think and the family, a lot of people now are not aware that yeah, the family are still out there searching for answer, trying to find closure to what happened to their loved ones. So it's a totally different thing. And I told my kids about that what I did and back then, but just a different time, and for me I think it's a unique because again, going back to the beginning, that I came to US alone when I joined the military. um, I joined the U.S. Air Force, just my mother is still home alone. And from then on, I served this country and I did 23 years with the U.S. Air Force.
Hmm.
I retired from the U.S. Air Force. And then I worked for defense contracting for a short period of time. And then I joined the Department of Defense Civil Service. And I did another 18 years. So together, I have 41 years
Hmm.
with the Department of Defense, 41 years. So when they told me that, hey, I have enough time, if I can retire if I want to. So I did that. I want to give back to my wife and kids as much time as I can because when I was working, I deploy all the time. I travel between Hawaii and Vietnam back and forth, spending 30, 45 days, sometime longer. Sometime I did 3 months of research in Vietnam and so much time away from the family that I want to give back to the family as much as I can. But looking at how this whole thing turned out from when I was small till now, it's amazing. Life is amazing.
Hmm.
Because uh, at certain point during my work, I was one of the very few Vietnamese that actually doing this mission. actually finding a missing American, bring home, to the U.S. For their family. And it's amazing when you think about it because the war was a long time ago. And I told I have a friend that did it with me during that time. I said, there was just a time when there's just two of us, you know, who
Mhm.
came from Vietnam, who's searching for missing Americans, and we traveled. We did research. I was later on running the research and investigation team.
Mhm.
Um, that I actually took a team to research in Vietnam at their national library and searching for their books and information records. And I also searched in the U.S. Archives, to different archives in the U.S. and also the university library and so on. Depend on the case. We have certain case that we know we target certain location to find information,
Mhm.
who's missing where, if they operate in the north or south, central, or they operate in the border, the Lao border. We have case like like um that especially operate during the the Ho Chi Minh Trail and so on. So we search for those things. We went to the CIA. We search for things, but it's kind of in a way um amazing to me, and life is good. Life turn out, but it was a challenge. It was work, but it's also rewarding because I did get to meet the family. I did talk with them and listen to what they have to say, and then trying to research, investigate, and recover the cases. And it's amazing.
Mhm.
Um, journey in life, from coming here alone in when I was younger. So
Mhm.
it's an amazing life for me.
Wow, that is an incredible life that you have lived, and as time goes on, we're already 51 years. What goes through your mind every April 30th, which is the date of the fall of Saigon? What comes through your mind, especially with so much time has passed, with all the work that you have done for the past 40 years, working with the US government and the Vietnamese officials? What does it look like to you now as a person, as a Vietnamese American?
Oh, I think right now the relationship is much different from when I first started.
Mhm.
The U.S. government and especially the U.S. Company bring a lot of business to Vietnam. So technology changes. A lot of Vietnamese citizens now are
Mhm.
very mindful with technologies. They communicate. You can see. Um, they have cell phone, they play a lot of video game and so
Mhm.
on. It's changed. Vietnam has changed quite a bit. And if you travel there, you see a lot of kids are similar to American kids where they play computer games and so
Mhm.
on. Actually, they don't play as much soccer like they used to do when I was a
Right.
kid. We go out and we play in the yard and kick balls around. A lot of Vietnamese kids now are in the internet cafe and so on, playing games. So Vietnam is changing. They if you travel to Thailand, you see Thailand is like more in front than Vietnam did, but Vietnam's getting there.
Mhm.
In form as far as technologies, you hear they build a lot of stuff now. They're catching up with electric vehicles and all kind of things. So it is changing, and I think the relationship was is good with between the two country. But the government is what it is, you know. So you
Yeah.
have to try when you travel to Vietnam, you have to understand there's laws and there's rules and there's local officials and so on. And you know, so you have to be mindful about that. You cannot do anything you want, you know, because it's not you're not in the US anymore when you travel to Vietnam
Hmm.
or any other country. You know, they have their own laws. So if you watch out and just be aware of the situation awareness, you'll be okay. The locals are friendly people, you know.
Hmm.
Nowadays
Hmm.
they want to practice English with you. They talk and they, you
Hmm.
know, and the economy is fairly good. The exchange rate, you can live pretty good or eat well in Vietnam.
Might be
Uh,
my retirement. Who knows?
yeah, yeah. But if you know if people have a chance to visit, you know, blend in with the local, do what the local do. I
Hmm.
do that, not just in
Hmm.
Vietnam, but other country too. You
Hmm.
know, if I want to experience what you know, local eat, what they do, or listen to how they communicate and learn. Basically, you know, I'm learning. I'm still learning. So it's but be mindful that it's a different government, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, yeah, and a different system, different kind of hospital. If so, you be aware, you know, your surrounding and what you need to do. You know,
Yeah. And one of the last questions I have for you is so now that you've been retired, how has retirement life been treating you? And what do you do these days on your free time? Because I know your son loves to post pictures of you guys together and it's always so adorable to watch, you know? So I'm very curious about what does free time look for you these days and
Um,
yeah,
yeah, well, so far this year's been it's starting out pretty good. We just welcomed our first granddaughter.
congratulations. Yeah.
My son, my oldest son, and his wife, who lives in Connecticut. They just have a baby on 7th of March.
Mhm.
So we traveled there to spend some time with them. My youngest son, Huy, he also asked for time off to be there. So anytime when we have when we can get together, you know, we try to do that and travel again. You know, we like to travel as much as I can, or we can, either road trip or we fly somewhere, and meet up, you know. So we have, so we just came back from Connecticut, um, and then we have planned to go to Vietnam next month
Wow.
for a friend's wedding, Hui's friend, and and they want to have one in Vietnam, and
Mhm.
then they travel to Seoul, Korea, and that brings us to about half a year gone by already. So we do a lot of
Wow.
travel, road trip a lot here. That while we're not traveling together, I take my wife on road trips and just enjoy. The U.S. is huge. You know, we
It
have
is.
50 states, so there's a lot of things to see, a lot of things to do. But you know, and so not just going traveling abroad, but you know, see things that this amazing country has to offer. You
Yeah.
know, but yeah, anytime when my kids say, "Hey, they're available," you know, they have time, and so we say, "Hey, we're there." You know, we want to spend as much time together as a family, and because you know life is short, so we have to uh, to enjoy the family, enjoy each other. Because time is more valuable to me now. You
Mm.
know, money is not as much anymore. There's a time for money, that be because when you're raising a family, when you're paying
Mhm.
for diaper or college or
Mhm.
buy a car or a house, but th those time come and now being together is more valuable. Spending
Yeah.
time with each other, talking. That's why I love road trip. Road trip force you to sit in a car with somebody and talk. That's the thing that we're missing a lot nowadays,
Yeah.
that talking. We're on the phone and text
Mhm.
messages and phone and everything. But we need to talk and say, hey,
Yeah.
how's thing going on in your life?
Yeah.
Anything troubling you? How's your job? How's it? So when you do like a road trip, we just did a 9-hour drive road trip
Wow.
to Palo Duro Canyon. But we get a chance to talk and just share, say, hey, uh, this uh, this is happening right now. This is what I'm thinking. This is what bothering me,
Mhm.
or just tell jokes and laugh.
Mhm.
Laughter is important, So we share and we laugh, and it's fun that way. Life become fun,
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
texting, and you don't hear the voice. You're missing something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of made me appreciate my past road trips with my late brother because I used to hate going on road trips with him because we have disagreements about how we should take our stops and all the
Yeah.
logistics and but then like as I look back on it, it's like gosh, I do miss those moments even though it
Yeah.
drove me crazy sometimes. But yes, I think that there is value where you can find that time and space to really think about how do I want to have a good lasting effect on the people that I care about, and I think that's really important. And
Yeah.
also congratulations on being a grandfather too. I,
Oh.
I hope that now you have more time, maybe more babysitting, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, tell Huy that too.
Yes, so you want to have more. You want to add more to the collection.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's everything has become a moment in time now. Once that moment's gone, you can't get it
I
back. So
know,
you're trying to
right?
do the best you can. Try to enjoy as much as you can.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where we're
absolutely,
at. If I talk too
absolutely.
much, let me know.
Oh, you're fine. And actually, but yeah, I just want to say lastly, but thank you so much for being on my show. This is a great conversation, and I hope that people get to tune in to this, and also be able to share, these stories because it is very important to American history, but also Vietnamese history and how that's so important to think about the impact of the war and what has happened afterwards. So much thanks to
Oh,
you.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. I enjoy talking with you. You're a fun guy.